here we go. So obviously, evening, gentlemen, we have now launched the Blind Pig episode 2 free agency recap. Come back
to gentlemen
and Mike. So we can come back, hit up some of our key topics we talked about before, maybe reach out and talk about some new things. Like I did last time, I'm going to throw a wrench into the thing, and I'm going to throw a topic out we didn't talk about.
Bastard.
Real quick. The Giants have now added Rudolph. They've added John Ross. They've added Kenny Golladay. They're going to get Saquon Barkley back. They have Evan Ingram. Are we worried about the Giants at all?
Yes, we are worried. And let me tell you why, because I just saw somebody on Twitter spouting about how we shouldn't be worried and we're going to terrorize them with our defense. However, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but the Giants have won the last 5 out of the last 6 contests, 5 out of the last 6.
They won one because we didn't go for the tie, though, to take it into overtime.
True. I'll give you that. But Daniel Jones has never lost against a Washington team, and that to me is pretty scary. So that was pre all these additions. So I think we should be a little bit more worried than some of the fans are letting on.
I don't think we can afford to not be worried about anybody. We're a 7-9 team. We need to worry about anybody that takes the field against us. The Giants are always tough. It's a division game. I'm always happy to split with the Giants. I think that's a pretty good year for us.
What do you got, Mike?
I don't think Golladay is as big of a deal as we think. He's always hurt. He was very underperforming in Detroit. And you've got someone like Stafford slinging it to you. Moving down to Daniel Jones, I'm not really too worried about him. Saquon Barkley had a serious injury last year, and he's had one great year, and then everyone talks about his quads. I've never been too afraid of him. He can bust it. He can get around, but we have an amazing D-line that gets back there quick and linebackers that need addressing but are thumpers and will get around there if they can. I don't really fear them. Daniel Jones, even if he got out of the pocket, he tripped over his own feet. I think this next year, Rivera's going to be have a full game plan set. Haskins won't be behind center, and we have added weapons, and our defense is just going to come in. They're sure of themselves, and they are cocky, and they're going to fire off on all cylinders. And I think it's just going to be a slugfest. And I think that the whole they've beaten us a bunch of times in a row is kind of a big deal, but I'm not afraid of them.
All right, Mike, I like it.
All right, cool. So Mike, I'm going to tee you up. A couple free agent names that we haven't addressed yet that you still got your eye on.
Yeah, there's some offensive linemen out there that are a little bit older but are really good vets. Eric Fisher's out there, Russell Okung's out there, and Alejandro Villanueva's out there. We need help on the line, even if it's for depth. I don't believe in Charles. I just don't believe in him yet. He played 2 snaps and was out for the season, and we're looking at him to possibly start on the left side. Morgan Moses on the right side is good, but he seems to always have a nagging injury. Brandon Scherf has been hurt a lot too. We need to bring people in that can step into the line and just veterans, good leaders that have played a long time and done a good job at their position. I'd bring in a Villanueva first. That guy is just, all he does is his job. He's on the left side. He just does his job. He doesn't complain. You don't hear about him in the media. And he works hard. I like those kinds of people in the trenches.
Well, let me ask you one follow-up, because while we were on last time, the news broke that we tagged Brandon Scherf, 30-year-old, $18 million. What do you think of the move?
No.
You don't like it? You want long-term?
For Scherf?
Yeah.
We're in a Kirk Cousins position again with Brandon Scherf. We're just tagging him, and we're going to tag him, and we're going to tag him, and we're not working a deal out with him. The guy has had a torn, was it bicep or pectoral muscle?
I think it was a pec.
He's hurt. He just gets hurt. He's a tackle that moved to guard, and yes, he does well. He has great flashes at guard, but if he's not going to sign a long-term deal with us and he wants top-tier money, find another guard. It won't. We might not find a Sheriff within the next few years after letting him go, but I don't want to pay $18 million a year for a guard. I just don't.
Ginn's first first team All Pro in how many years? 20? Who was the last one? Jim Lachey?
No,
Who's
Matt
the last-
Turk. Matt Turk was the last one. A punter.
Matt Turk. All right.
That was
All right.
just a
When
couple
Matt
years
Turk
ago.
is your last first team All Pro,
But we've had Trent Williams and Chris Samuels, and if those guys aren't doing it, then that's just not. This isn't the Hogs. You know what I mean? In the words of whoever that coach was, that if you're expecting the Hogs to walk through this door, you're mistaken. We don't have the Hogs lineup, and that Hogs 2.0 bugged me. But our offensive line is never going to be top tier when you have those guys out there that are top tier.
in fairness, I don't think we should be paying a guard $18 million a year. And I also don't want to sign Scherf to a 5-year deal at 30 years of age when the dude hasn't managed to stay healthy for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, Mike. And I kind of agree with you.
Well, I reserve the right to throw a conniption fit next year if we sign him for a 4-year deal at $18 million. I think right now what they're acknowledging is they have a lot of holes to fill, and they're trying not to create new holes while we're trying to fill the significant holes that we already have. So I really think they just bit the bullet and swallowed hard. And I agree with Mike. It's not the franchise tag has not been our friend. And I don't really like to see us going down that path again, but I don't see it going beyond this year unless he decides to play ball. And I think if he was going to play ball contract wise, we'd already know that.
I agree with that. I think that's the key going into next year. I'm perfectly happy to have him here this year. The O-line is not a strength of the team, and he's the best guy we got up there. Yep, the rest of the league seems to think he's pretty good. When he's out there, he's a mauler. I like that. We'll worry about it next year, right? We may be in the new NFL where you're going on series of 1-year contracts for a whole lot of guys.
Especially with the down cap, that makes a big difference. Then on top of that, I think they wanted to kick the can down the road. I think the quarterback position's not set. There's a lot to worry about. And if you bite the bullet and overpay for your guard to make sure that, Leonard Williams isn't eating your quarterback's breakfast every time that we come out on the field for one more season to try to address the position, I can't hate it.
If you have Alejandro Villanueva in there
at half the price,
you're now less worried. Villanueva is going to be, he's going to cost more, but do we really trust Charles lining up at left tackle right now? I don't.
No.
I don't. And even with Fitzpatrick back there who can run with the best of them, I don't trust that. We have Fitzpatrick, and then we have two quarterbacks that have been we have Kyle Allen has been hurt, and Taylor who's unproven. We need anchors.
So easy
like
transition. Right to you, Paul. What's your reaction? You had Cam Newton pegged as our next starting quarterback. We ended up Newton never even made it to free agency, by the way. He signed like the night before. So he never actually made it to the tampering.
Well, I'm still convinced that had he made it, I think we were going to make a push for him. But all that being said, in terms of Fitzpatrick, I'm 100% for it. I know when I talked about Newton earlier, I said it last time. I said we need to be about taking no steps back in 2021. And I think that veteran presence, that leadership figure behind center is going to give you the best chance of making this happen. Rivera strikes me as the type of guy he's someone who's big on trust. I thought that Newton would have been a good fit in that regard because the trust element was there with Rivera. But again, with Fitzpatrick, not surprised that he's here because they can attest to that trust factor. He's worked with Zampese in the past. They know what he brings to the table. I think he's going to be able to give you that seamless transition opportunity. This is a guy who's been in the league for a long time. It's not going to be a matter of there being questions of him picking up our offensive system. He said it in the press conference himself. He said, it's not going to be a matter of me picking up our offensive system. He said it's going to be more about him developing familiarity and chemistry with the other offensive pieces on our team. So I like it from that standpoint. It gives you the opportunity to have that seamless transition and pick up with some of the momentum that we established last year. And I'm not sure that seamless transition would have happened had we picked up a Trubisky, a Mariota, what have you. Really like Fitzpatrick from the standpoint of the sense of calm that he brings. That was one of the first things that struck me in his press conference. He just seems like a guy that's not going to stress about too much. I think that's really going to pay dividends for our team. We have a really young nucleus of offensive players. And with some of our offensive leaders, when you think of Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, these are guys who are still crafting their game to an extent. So that quiet sense of calm that Fitzpatrick is going to bring, I think is going to be really, really good for our team. I want to talk about the statistics for a second, if you guys will give me a moment or two.
Rock and roll, buddy.
Okay. Fitzpatrick's a guy that, for me, he's aged like a fine wine in some regards. I watched a clip that the Washington football team posted on Instagram yesterday. I thought it was pretty cool. It said over the last 3 years, he's got a better completion percentage than Tom Brady, more yards per attempt than Russell Wilson, and a better quarterback rating than Deshaun Watson. I'm pretty sure we would all take that for a season or two. Over the last 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20, he's got completion percentages of 66.7, 62, and 68.5 respectively. Last year was his highest completion percentage of his career. So this is a guy that, with time over the course of his career, he seems to have gotten better, and I think we can ride that for a year or two. I know a lot of people are going to point to the interceptions. They're going to say that this guy's an interception machine, but I think the context matters as well. You got to think about who the guy played for over the course of his career. St. Louis, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Tennessee, Houston, the Jets, Tampa Bay, Miami. These were teams that were in transition and flux, not necessarily strong teams that we're dealing with here. It begs the question, was this guy sometimes forcing the ball because he was playing from behind, playing catch up, so to speak? One thing that I ran into that I looked up, I thought this to be pretty interesting. He's had 3 seasons in his career where he's played for a team with a winning record. Houston in 2014, the Jets in 2015, and last but not least, Miami this past season. In those 3 years where he's played on a winning football team, he's had 61 touchdowns, 31 interceptions. It's almost a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. So you're seeing a different quarterback when he's playing on a team that's a winner. And I think that with our team, with our defense, he's not necessarily going to have to force the issue and be trying to come back from 21 points down, so to speak. I think we're going to get a much more responsible quarterback in that regard. I think he makes others around him better. This was one final stat, which I thought was amazing. In 8 of the seasons where he's started 11 or more games, he's produced 1,000-yard receiver 6 times. I think that that's going to bode really, really well for the development of some of our young stars at wide receiver.
Can we get 2? Can we get 2 maybe?
Yeah, okay, McLaurin. Let's go
Right, get the posse going, all 3 of them.
Yeah, so I think that that's going to bode really, really well for their production. I think it's going to bode really well for their development. And let's not forget that last year we were in 6 one-possession games. In our losses, 6 times we lost by 1 possession. Fitzpatrick has had 18 game-winning drives in his career. 5 of those game-winning drives have happened over the last 2 years. So I think there's going to be some point this year where we're going to need some of that Fitz magic, and I think he can give it to us. I'm pretty high on the signing.
Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. I was waiting for my opportunity.
He did have the quote of the century.
Well done. Well done.
He had the quote of the century. He said every game he plays is a revenge game because he's played for every team in the NFL.
Paul, I like what you did there with stats, and I was waiting to see if you'd hit the ones. I looked at stats too on Ryan, because my first reaction was not great. The beard really, but the context. He's not our projected next 5-year starter. He's here for 2021, and let's see how it plays out after that. The stat that jumped out at me, given Rivera's whole culture change thing here in Washington, Fitzpatrick has been voted team MVP in 5 different NFL locker rooms in his career. His teammates love the guy, and every place he's been, he's a team captain, team MVP, and people can't say enough good things about him. If that's not a mentor and a good bridge to whoever's next, I don't know who is. So I'm excited to see how he does. I really am.
Well, the interesting thing is we could have had him last season, because he's a free agent every year pretty much. Where if you think about last season, imagine our offense, imagine that we could have actually put some points on the board if we'd had someone like him instead of continuing the Dwayne Haskins experiment because the owner insisted on it. And then we threw, a semi-paralyzed Alex Smith out there to try to play. But I think if we'd have had him last year, we could have won 3 or 4 more games just with that production alone.
Love to pick Scott Turner's brain, what he's thinking. He's got a guy who's as smart as any quarterback in the league, arguably, who's seen it all. Turner likes to run those multiple offenses, right? With all the different options. So he can do anything he wants with this guy. He can go deep. He can play it short. I think he's going to be like a mad scientist this year and see what kind of havoc we can make out there.
I can't figure out why Fitzpatrick never latched onto a team and became a quarterback. Because Brett Favre's a gunslinger, right? You have those quarterbacks, but Brett Favre played for the Packers forever. Fitzpatrick is, like you said, good guy, team MVP, will get the ball down the field, busts his hump for every team he's played for, and never complains. Why didn't he land? But for 10 or 12 mil, whatever the year's salary was this year, you couldn't get a better quarterback right now. That's cheaper than Cam Newton signed for. And the guy's going to come in and he knows that he's here for a short time and he's just going to sling the ball. He's going to throw that ball down the field, and Samuel and McLaurin better be working on their sprints. They better be working on wind sprints and getting away from receivers because Fitzpatrick's going to be slinging that ball.
Because it's going in hot.
Like you said. Oh, absolutely. That's something we haven't seen. Alex Smith has always been a dink and dunker, and that was ever since Kansas City. He'll throw one deep ball, but he's not going to risk that interception. Yes, it works, but we dropped behind by 14. We're behind 2 touchdowns before you can blink an eye in the first quarter, and it's like we're fighting back. Fitzpatrick is going to be slinging that ball. Now,
we are going to have Rex Grossman moments, though.
No.
He's going to force it deep when he should.
All right.
I think Paul hit on why he hasn't caught on. And I just want to throw that out there. I think the reason he hasn't caught on is he's played for horrible teams. And what happens with horrible teams is there's regime change every 3 years, if every 3 years. So I think if he had ever had a coach that brought him in and then was able to be there for more than a couple of years at a time, he might have caught on. But I think that he's just been a victim of timing, I think, for the most part.
That's fair.
And they're all drafting high.
Yeah.
So they're all getting
the
the
quarterback of the future, right?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the question that keeps bugging me. And I've seen it on Facebook. I've also seen it on our own forums, right? 10 million's not guaranteed starter money. Yet we're sitting here, the 6 of us are sitting here talking about it like it's kind of a done deal. Is it a done deal?
He's getting 10 times the guys who are competing with him. That's my point.
No,
he's literally getting 10
which
times.
He's got what, 4.5 million?
Which is half the going rate for a starting quarterback, by the way.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, no. Taylor got what, 4.5 million for 1 year, 2 years? What was it?
No, he got 8. He got
8 million.
See up to 8 for 2.
For 2 years, right? So we're talking 4 million a year. Yeah, that's not
with
10
incentives.
times.
With incentives. That's all. A lot of that is incentives.
It might also be
what Kyle Allen's on.
It might also be because of the length of the contract. It's 1 year. Nobody's going to sign a quarterback for $33 million for 1 year. If I'm investing $33 million in you, I'm going to do it for 4 or 5 years because I believe that you're the guy in the future. A $12 million guy, he's a hired gun. He's a hired gun to come in here and do what he's been doing for Miami, what he did with Tua, what he did in Tampa. You know what I mean? He's coming in here to push the offense down, introduce the quarterbacks to what we want to do, and unfortunately, bye.
I think Bob's right that he's not been anointed, and I just don't think that's Rivera's style anyway. Is he's not going to bring in anybody. If we drafted a guy and he'd worked for 3 years, then he's the presumed starter. But I think Rivera wants competition, and I would almost guarantee you that he told Fitzpatrick that on the way in, that look, you should win the starting job, but nothing's guaranteed. It's on you.
Rivera already came out and said last year his biggest mistake was that Haskins was a starter the day he got hired, and he knew that. And then Fitzpatrick, in his onboarding interview, somebody asked him and said, "What were you told with your starter as far as starting and where you stood?" And he just said, "A chance." So I don't think Fitzpatrick thinks he's the day one starter. I think we can look at his salary and say, you know what, he's got the odds-on favorite that if Fitzpatrick and Heineke and Allen are all equal, Fitzpatrick's playing because he's the older guy, he's the more experienced guy. But if Allen and Heineke come in and they excel and they're, not on par with him, they're a step above him, I don't think Rivera is going to say, you know what, we're paying him more, so put him in the game. I don't think that's at all even going to cross his mind.
I think Allen's our third stringer. If for no other reason, it's because of the injury. Heineke played a hell of a game against the Bucs, and I'm looking forward to see what he does with a full camp with maybe the ones and coming out there. But it's Fitzpatrick. My gut.
Something scary to consider is coming into last season. Before we move on, coming into last season, we had a half a leg Alex Smith who couldn't move. We had Dwayne Haskins who was known for being a statue. I thought he had some sneaky athleticism. He just didn't know how to use it. And then we had traded for Kyle Allen. Now we have three quarterbacks that almost mimic what what Taylor Heineke did in the first round of the playoffs, because Kyle Allen has that athleticism. He showed it. He ran for a touchdown. He's done it. And Fitzpatrick has shown that he'll take his head and run it through a brick wall if it means he's going to get a first down. So the whole dynamic of the offense could change with what Fitzpatrick does. And that could be something they're thinking about deeper, is that do we want to transition this offense with Heineke, with Allen, and with our next guy to mimic more of Fitzpatrick's type of game than trying to set this game plan up and have the entire offense built around like an Alex Smith type game, which we saw is less effective than Heineke, who got signed off. Literally, the street came in and had the best 6 quarters of football we've seen from a quarterback in 20 years. And that's not even hyperbole. That's legitimate. So before we go too far,
we had 3 quarterbacks. Do you remember the last time we had 3 quarterbacks fighting for the starting job?
No, I don't.
John Beck,
Doug Williams, Stan Humphries, Jay Schrader.
Hey, well, if we could find a way to do that again, let's do it, please. I'll give it all up right now.
Wasn't it Bill Parcells that said if you have 3 guys competing to be the guy, you don't have a guy?
You don't have
he said
a guy.
if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have 1 quarterback. That's what he said.
If you've got 2 competing, you don't have 1. That's, and so we have 3. What's that say?
Well, except we'll come back to it again. Ryan is here for 1 year, maybe 2, but he's a 1-year guy while we try to figure out what we've got in Taylor Heineke. And then if he's not the guy, we're moving on and finding out who is. We'll be right back here next year.
And we had 8 quarterbacks the year before and ended up signing Josh Johnson from like a landscaping job, and he won a game. Like, we literally, I'm okay with this. This is a good problem.
I agree.
All right, Bob, what's your reaction to Curtis Samuel? By the way, your boy Juju signed 1 year, $8 million to play in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
All that he talked about, I'm out packing my bags.
And in all honesty, I'd have taken him in Washington for $8 million for 1 year.
I would have taken him for $8 million.
I'm not unhappy with Curtis Samuel. My knock on Samuel was, I had 2 knocks on Samuel. Number one, I feel like we've got the small speed guy, right? McLaren's not the biggest guy in the world, and he's got speed for days, and I feel really good about that. I wanted a bigger body guy that's willing to go over the middle and take his lumps and move the chains, closer to an Art Monk kind of a thing, right? Monk and Clark together is kind of the way I looked at it. Granted, Juju's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'1", 215. But he's got game speed. That was the thing that just kind of blew me away. No matter what anybody does to him, he manages to get free. He's got greater yards per catch than Samuel does, even with all of Samuel's speed. Not by much. We're talking less than a yard. But he also has over 100 catches more in the same 4 years that Samuel's got. Now, am I unhappy? No, I'm not unhappy. I think Curtis is probably a gamer. Curtis and Terry get along. We know that. They went to college together, right? Apparently, they sat in the dorm room at night and talked about the idea of being on the same team together.
Where did they go to college?
Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Someplace south of Michigan.
Oh, we don't talk about the other team.
Yeah, actually, if it's not UVA, I don't care, Mike. So that's all right. But no, I mean, having the speed on the outside is great. My biggest concern with Samuel is durability. Now, having said that, he and Juju, I mean, there's a difference of like 6 games. Samuel got injured late his rookie year and didn't play the last half of the year with a fairly severe ankle injury. Other than that, he's been fairly durable. 13, 16. Wait, I got the numbers. Where'd I put them? 13, 16, and 15 games a season, right? That's not too shabby, especially for those of us that have put up with Trent Williams for the last 6 years.
Oh,
Did he get shut down late last year though? Because they were out. They were done, right?
He played 15 games last year.
Right.
Now he apparently only started 5, which I find interesting.
That's a depth chart thing.
Yeah, exactly. But 97 targets, 77 receptions, 851 yards, which is a little light. But who was playing quarterback in Carolina? I don't remember any of. John will know.
Last year was Teddy Bridgewater.
Wait, John, wait. It's your backyard, brother.
he doesn't even know where Sierra Nevada is. Let's cut him a break.
So, am I unhappy? No, the answer is that I'm not unhappy. Would I have preferred Juju? Sure, but not by a lot. And here's the thing. Apparently Harmon's healthy. He's a bigger body guy. If they can teach Cam Sims how to actually hang on to more than 1 out of 3 balls, he's a much bigger body guy, right? And Samuel plays both slot and outside. So you've got plenty of versatility in the entire crew there. I don't think it's a bad signing. And if you recall, I actually used kind of the same argument that Paul used and said, I wouldn't be surprised if Samuel wasn't the guy just because of familiarity. Rivera drafted him. He likes him. He's comfortable with him.
I think we might be. I think one of the things, it's not just familiarity. I think that Samuel's personality is he's more of a Rivera type player. Schuster's out there on social media, yakking his yap as often as he can. I don't think Rivera, I'm not saying that was a deciding factor, but I think they had enough of that with Haskins, and they're not looking to have a look at me kind of a player. And so that might have been a little bit of a factor. That's just
I can't argue with that. I mean, it was if there was a drawback for me with Schuster, it was the fact that he's all over the place and the whole dancing on other people's logos. And, let's face it, I'm old school. I'm a Gibbs guy. I want people that carry a lunchbox and come in and do their job and keep their yap shut and do their, and go home.
Okay.
So,
I think one of the versatilities with Samuel though is his ability around the line of scrimmage, because you've got Terry McLaurin, who's Terry McLaurin. We wanted Steve Sims to be able to do this, but I don't want to see Terry McLaurin take a single jet sweep ever, because I don't want to see him running from left to right into a linebacker's hit stick zone. So if you want to have Curtis Samuel, who's proven it, because you threw those stats out, he also had 40 carries last season.
Yep.
Multiple out of the actual running back position, reverses, jet sweeps, that kind of a thing. So
we want 72 attempts in his career for almost 500 yards.
So the nice thing is we got wide receivers that you don't know if they're catching or running the ball. And we've got running backs who you don't know whether they're running the ball or catching the ball.
There you go. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's what we're putting together here. Brown talked about that from the day he came in the door, that they wanted to be multiple on offense. They got more multiple with those 2 guys on the outside who can run with it. Scott Turner's got to be the happiest guy in town right about now.
Right.
Having said that, I still think we draft a wide receiver.
I agree.
So wait a minute. If I'm not mistaken, isn't T.Y. Hilton a free agent right now?
Yes.
Yeah. He's very similar though. He's that burner speed, right? By the way, breaking news.
Veteran that come in here and go down the field and across the middle. The Rams did it with Al Hakim, Terry Holt, and Isaac Bruce. You know what I mean? You don't have to have that super possession guy. You can just let someone like Kurt Warner, who's packing groceries, sling the ball. And that's what Fitzpatrick wants to do. If they got 2 wide receivers on the outside, running down the outside, going deep, you can't double both, and somebody's going to be open. That's what I mean. They got to do their sprints.
Speed kills. Breaking news: Deshaun Jackson signed with the Rams. Do we care?
No.
He's in
Not
LA.
even-
All he's gonna care about is being in LA, and
He's
gonna
reunites
go-
with Sean McVay. Just figured I'd
he's gonna
throw it
have
out there.
5 games. He's gonna play 5 games, and then he's gonna tear out an oblique or
Something.
I think he's going out there to further his recording career. So
Yeah,
no, he's
and-
done. He's done.
So last big signing we had was William Jackson III. I had DBs. He wasn't on my list, but we don't have to talk about that. I had Darby. Darby's
everyone under the bus, and you just drove the bus off. Look at you. No, you didn't talk about him.
Hey,
That's right.
Fitzpatrick wasn't on Paul's list either, so you're all right, Derek.
See, I wanted Darby because I liked what I saw from Darby, and I didn't want to create another hole. I can say we actually upgraded the position. So letting Darby walk sucked because I liked Darby. I liked the way he played, local guy, whatever. Well, we just added one of the top man-to-man cover corners in free agency, and that makes me extremely happy. And I know it makes Mike and John extremely happy because the zone coverage throughout this entire season just made me want to just ram my head into a wall. Watching them get 8 and 9 yards as we were playing 12 yards off and everybody was in zone and there's constant holes. Well, hopefully this means that the mentality for Jack Del Rio is to give him some studs that can press the line, that can hit people in the mouth, somebody who can play man-to-man coverage. You can leave them kind of on an island and we can play that shut down kind of defense as opposed to bend and don't break. And better yet, if we can play some press and
Wait,
buy some.
it's been don't break.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
right.
That
If
makes
we
a
can-
lot of sense.
If we can play a little bit of press at the line and knock those wide receivers off of their route and give those ends in that interior line just an extra second to get to that quarterback, then that just makes up the whole difference. And it helps the interior linemen. It helps the outside linemen. It helps the linebackers. It helps your safeties when you know that you can kind of push and they can buy you an extra second to make up that ground if that quarterback decides to make that way. So I really like the signing. 14 mil's kind of rich. So now we're paying 2 number 1 corner type deals. Fuller's not completely number 1. He's getting 10, but still you're paying double-digit millions to your cornerbacks. We're going to have to make up ground somewhere. I think we still go safety. I still think they're looking at Trey Boston if they can get him at a decent price or a draft pick. Boston made 6.5 last year. If we can get him in here at 5, I think you're talking about a pretty good secondary with Fuller, the Collins Curl combination, depending if Collins is healthy. You put Boston at free safety, then you got Jackson on the other side. We went from a weakness 2 years ago to now having pretty potent secondary as far as I'm concerned. If we have one more quality move at free safety.
It was a very pleasant surprise to me that they were able to get him in here.
I think it's a really good, I think it's a good move from the standpoint as well, that when you think of our division, when you think of the NFC East, the receiving cores in that division are slowly but surely and quietly starting to improve. You think of who Dallas has there. They got Cooper, they got a couple other pieces, CeeDee Lamb. The Giants have obviously upgraded their wide receiver positions. The Eagles might, get one of the top rated receivers in the draft. I think it's imperative that we improve our corner play. I think Jackson fits perfectly in that regard. Because again, we're going to be facing a pretty solid group of receivers in the NFC East 6 times a year. So, the more bodies that we have back there, the more skill we have that back there, all the better. And we know from past years, when this team can compete in a division, when this team has a winning record in a division, more often than not, we can compete for a playoff spot. And I think if you look back over the last 20 odd years or so, look at the years that we've made the playoffs, we always have a winning record in our division. So it's imperative that we can match up with these receivers in the division. And again, our division is starting to get some good receivers out there. So we need bodies, and I think it's a great move from that regard.
Agreed.
All right, John,
I think
your
I think
tight
that-
ends.
Hold on real
What's up?
quick. I think that with paying 14 mil for Johnson and paying 10 mil for Fuller, that's cornerback money. That's the
Yeah.
position. It's not that we're overpaying him. That's
No.
what the position calls for with that. And we actually kind of got a good deal for a young guy. The only thing with Johnson is when you watch his highlight tapes, He needs to be able to catch that ball more. So many times that ball bounced off his chest or off his hand. Or, I know when sometimes you're diving, you reach an arm out there, but you got to make that pick at a corner.
You saw that money too, huh?
I was having Carlos Rogers flashbacks.
Yep,
Yeah.
bingo.
And you know who else is a free agent right now is Breland. Breland and Dunbar are both free agents.
I don't want
I'd
him
take
back.
Breland back, but not Dunbar.
I
don't
like
like
Bree.
that.
I like Bree. I like
Gotta
me some
have
Bree.
depth. You gotta have depth. All our guys get hurt back there, man. It's just always when Collins got hurt, we got lucky. Curl was able to step up.
Yeah.
But you gotta have depth at the corner, especially on this team.
So John, all your tight ends got signed, man.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with the same thing I started with last time, which is where we're sitting at tight end. And that is a pretty bare cupboard. We've got Logan Thomas. We all know, I don't think they're going to bring Mr. Sprinkle back in his one catch in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, but he looked good making it.
Yeah. Wasn't that a diving touchdown? If I remember correctly.
I don't know. It's just by accident, I think. So these are the guys currently on the roster. We got Marcus Baugh. Let me know if you recognize any of these names. Marcus Baugh, Tamara Hemingway, Thaddeus Moths, Dylan Cantrell, and some other guys. So we obviously need some help. And I was pretty disappointed. I know they can't fill every hole. I think they were probably in the mix for some of the tight ends like Jonnu Smith and Gerald Everett, who I talked about last time, and Dan Arnold. I think they were probably in the mix for those guys. They just couldn't get to the finish line with them. That's the rumor that I heard. I'm not sure which of those guys they were competing for, but I know they were rumored to be in the mix for a tight end. But it does beg the question, if we don't have a second tight end on the roster, a reliable one, we are not obtaining one in free agency. It's not a very strong tight end draft. Really, there's I'm going to talk about one of the guys at the end. There's two guys in this draft that look like real tight ends. One of them maybe a Hall of Fame level tight end. But we're probably not going to find them in the draft. So it just kind of makes you wonder, what are they thinking? And I know I will acknowledge that Derek brought up a good point, which is that most teams do not obsess about the tight end position. They're kind of like, yeah, we got some tight ends. I don't, what's his name and his buddy over there next to him. It's not like a premier position on most teams, setting aside the Gronkowski type players. So maybe it's too much ado about nothing, but I do think we have a little bit of a problem there. So looking at who's left in free agency, I didn't look at anyone beyond the age of 31, just because if we're going to bring in a guy, I think it needs to be somebody with at least the potential to have, a few years with us, not just a one and done deal. So I looked at the first name that jumped out at me was Tyler Eifert. And most of us recognize Eifert's name. He's 31. He's a big guy, 6'6", 255. He's got the biggest pedigree. He's the former first-round draft pick by the Bengals back in 2013. I don't know if you remember 2013, but I had a good year that year. He has averaged 40 receptions for 400 yards over the last couple of seasons. So he's still a productive tight end. That's pretty decent yards. He catches about 67% of his balls for his career, but he's kind of got a Jordan Reed vibe going now. He's been hurt a lot over the last few years. So I'm not sure how reliable he would be if we brought him in. And I think that's why he's still out there. Jesse James is another guy. He's the other experienced tight end that's still available. I'm kind of surprised. He's another big guy. He has the same body type as Logan Thomas does. He's 6'7". He is spent most of his career with the Steelers, and he didn't miss a game the first 4 seasons. But then he went to Philly, and everything went to hell. He got hurt and hasn't played much since then. He went to Detroit, and he's not a fast guy. He's not a particularly athletic guy, but he's a pretty good blocker, and he's competent. So he would be the other reasonable pickup we could look at. And then I've got 3 younger guys I'll talk about real quick. Trey Burton is one of them. He's 29. And you probably remember Trey Burton because when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, he's the guy that threw the trick play pass to Nick Foles for the touchdown right before the half ended. That kind of
the Philly special.
Yes. So he's that guy. He's not a very big guy. He's only 6'2". He's more of a spark plug type tight end.
Like a H-back type, like a Cooley type kind of.
Yeah, his best season was in 2018. He caught almost 55 passes. So he's still out there. And then the last 2 guys I'll talk about, Richard Rodgers, and you may remember his name. He's a 29-year-old He signed with Washington last April. He was actually here all summer. He got all the way up to September cuts and was cut. So he would be a guy that they're familiar with and who knows the offense a little bit. He played 4 seasons in Green Bay, only missed 1 game in 4 seasons. So he's durable. He has had 1 or 2 good seasons, but again, if he was really a difference maker, he wouldn't be available. And then the last guy I'll mention is the one that I might be interested in taking a flyer on, and that's Jake Butt. And I don't know if you've heard of Jake Butt before, but Jake Butt's a 26-year-old. He played for Harbaugh at Michigan. He was actually the John McKay Award winner his last season there in 2016, and that's the best tight end in the country award. And then he tore his ACL, I think on the way to pick up the award. He was supposed to be a 2nd round pick, ended up getting taken in the 5th round.
Yeah, he was late.
By Denver. And then guess what? 2018, he tore his ACL again and couldn't play in 2019 because the ACL had not fully healed. He finally got on the field last year, played 5 games, looked pretty good, and then tore his hamstring. So I know what you're thinking.
Gosh.
I mean, how many guys like that are we going to sign?
Can he run on his arms?
Right. If he was a horse, we would have put him down by now.
I know. I'm just saying that if we're going to take a flyer, he might be a guy that's worth.
You got Bob rubbing his eyes, bud.
I'm laughing at the if he was a horse, we'd have put him down by now. Oh my God.
Okay. I'm grasping at straws here, people. Help me.
But I guess he's not going to be your premier guy. You're not bringing him in to catch 80 balls.
No, he's a wing and a prayer is what he is. But anyway, I think their best bet at this point really is to draft. I like this Pat Frymouth. I know we're not talking draft tonight, but the Penn State tight end.
I like him.
That guy's a beast. He's nasty, Mike, just like you are. He has a nose for the end zone. I mean, he's just a bad dude. Yeah. And he's probably the only tight end we have a chance of drafting. He's projected to go in the 2nd round. And I'm thinking what we could do is maybe pick whoever we're going to pick with our current 2nd rounder, and then take those 2 third rounders that we have and move up and grab him, because we really do need a 2nd tight end. I just don't know where he's coming from at this point.
So you don't have any faith in Thaddeus Moths with the pedigree name and the stuff he did down in LSU?
Yeah, I mentioned him. I did mention him last time because I think they'll take a look at him. He's coming off IR, so that's something they got to look at. But
yeah, but that was a weird IR though. Like he was kind of rumored to be back at practice, and he was kind of doing this, and it's like they were just like, you know what, you're not going to get any playing time. We don't want to cut you, so we're just going to say that you're just IR'd for the season, because it was very odd. Because if I remember the timing right, he was inactive and he was hurt, and they were rehabbing him, and he was working off to the side. And things were looking okay for like 2 weeks. And then it was like, oh, Thaddeus Moths to IR. Like, it was almost like it wasn't a situation where he was in a preseason game and he went down and he was on IR starting on Monday. It was like a buildup, like he was going to get back. And then they were just like, well, no, you're over here now. And you're not playing anymore.
I mean, of all the guys that are on the roster south of Thomas, I think he's probably the guy that I'd give the most chance, just because they obviously liked him enough to pick him up on the undrafted free agent list. I don't know why they don't take Cam Sims, because God knows, I don't think he's ever going to be a top tier wide receiver. No. I don't know why they don't take him and convert him over to tight end.
Pack about 30 pounds on him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. Because wide receiver pay to tight end contracts are a lot different.
Right. Yeah. Hey, go ask Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry how Bill Parcells pays his tight ends, and Cam Sims might change his mind.
Cam Sims needs about 30 pounds, 6'5", 220.
Funny thing about our tight end position, John, right now, it feels like another tight end is a luxury. If our boy Logan Thomas goes down in the preseason for the year, we got nothing. So we really do. Yeah. We need some bodies in here to compete.
Yeah, but having Logan come in like that, man, that was such a blessing. He just showed up. He was okay, and I remember him in Detroit. He was good, but he just studded up and just was like, "I'm it." I was happy with that.
If he's on the field, we have a tight end. If he's not available, we got a problem.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are sleeping on Sprinkle. He's due.
He's due. He's due. He's due for an unemployment check.
Have you seen him without his shirt off? I mean, I'm telling you.
That's
I
yeah.
haven't.
Say, hey, I remember what LeBron Landry looked like without his shirt on too.
Hey,
Oh, Leroy.
hey, Mike, get another beer, buddy. Just get another beer.
Who was that? Who was the guy that everyone fell in love with in training camp like 7 years ago? The
McCoy.
Army vet. Yeah.
Robert
McClone, right?
McClone.
McClone. That dude was. Yeah, that guy was meant for WWE.
Where
All
is
right.
he now? All right, now I got to look him
Yeah,
up.
he's out of the league.
Yeah, he's been out of the league for a while, I think.
All right, Mark. You talked out LBs last time. All your guys went off the board swimmingly and got paid handsomely to do so.
Are both the Tampa guys off the board?
Say again?
Are both the Tampa linebackers off the board?
They are.
Griffin re-signed, right?
Yeah.
He did.
Massive deal.
As I watched free agency play out, and we got a nice shiny new toy for Neo at wide receiver. We got a nice new secondary addition. I started to wonder about the linebacking core, so I called Jack Del Rio, and he said,
Jackie,
bro,
baby.
he said, bro, don't worry, we're debuting the 7-4 defense this year.
Yeah.
We don't need no stinking linebackers.
The UFO defense of the Browns a couple years ago.
The one guy that I was making a case for last week that we needed to keep was Kevin Pierre-Louis. He's gone. I get it. He got more money.
Wait.
Clarification on that.
I don't know. He might not be.
Clarification on that. I saw a report today. He has not been officially listed on the transaction feed. So technically, he is not he's still not signed yet.
Do we know why? I missed that.
He just hasn't actually shown up on the official NFL transaction list.
Okay.
So technically, he has not signed with another team.
All right. So we'll go best case scenario. He comes back here for free.
Back on a decent deal. Yeah.
Yeah. We still haven't really gained anything. We're treading water in that case. Right. The one signing we did make, meet David Mayo. He's 6'2", 240. He's 27. He's played for 6 years, 4 in Carolina, the last 2 for the Giants. He's played in 86 games. He had only missed 1 game prior to last year. He was reliable. He's got 2 career sacks, no picks, 157 tackles. He's not a starter. He's not going to be a starter. He's a depth guy. I got no problem with the signing as part of a new crew. The rest of our guys who are left over are names that we talked about last week, and nobody knew them then. I mean, we know them. John Bostic's still here. He's solid. He's a veteran. He's going to be in the middle. Cole Holcomb is here. Kaliki Hudson is here, who's a guy. Jordan Kanasic is here, who I wouldn't recognize on the street. And that's it. That's what our depth looks like at linebacker right now. Harvey Clemons, Josh Harvey Clemons, I forgot to mention last time because I guess he opted out for COVID. Hopefully he comes back. He's a big kid. He's 6'4", he's 245. He's only 27 years old, but we don't know much about him. He's flashed a few times, but when you see the occasional flash, that could be anything from he was out of position and he ran real fast to catch up. So he looked good on film. I don't know anything about the guy. So I'm trying to figure out what our thinking is here. We may well have tried to land some of these guys and failed. Or maybe they know something we don't, either about the bodies we have or the direction they're going. What I'm left with right now is KJ Wright is still out there, the veteran from Seattle. He's going to be 32, which turned me off at first, but the way I think they're approaching turning over the linebacking core, I can see them trying to bring him in for 1 or 2 years to stabilize things, be a veteran presence, help Bostic out. And our guy with the long hair from New Orleans is still out there, Anzalone, who runs around. Nobody's made him any offers. I think we'll be bringing in a couple of bodies like that. What I don't see happening is us using free agency as anything more than stopgap. So I started looking at where I think we might do with 19. And I really hate going down this road because you don't want to be waiting on a late teens pick to try to get your guy. But the way we've approached linebacking seems to make sense if our idea is to take a guy we think and we can plug in a first day starter, a rookie. And the three names that jump out, those of you who look at draft stuff, I haven't been a draft guy, but Micah Parsons out of Penn State, some seem to think he could survive to 19. If you go look at him play, I mean, the kid's a beast. He looks like was it Devin White down in Tampa? He's sideline to sideline. He blows people up. You add him to the mix, all of a sudden it doesn't look like such a bare cupboard. There's another kid out of Missouri that I'm sort of falling in love with, Nick Bolton. All I will do is say, go look at some YouTubes of Nick Bolton play, and you'll know why I like the idea of him in the middle of our defense. He kind of blows people up on a regular basis, and they know he's there. And another projection I've seen is the long, tall kid out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Karamoah.
Wow.
He nailed it.
Did you practice that, Mark? How long did you practice that name?
In the mirror.
No, I have no idea if that's right or not, but I like it. I said it with conviction.
Own it.
He's this one of these real long rangy guys. He makes plays downfield. He's a coverage kind of backer.
So we thinking Ted Hendricks?
He's not 6'8" or whatever Stork was, but I think he's a 6'4", 6'5" guy who can run. Got good instincts. He's a good solid player. So, I mean, I don't know what our plan is at linebacker. I'm hoping that there are really smart people out at football team park who have a plan for this defense. We've got ourselves a rock solid front four, and with a rotation. Our secondary is at least competitive, if not better. Our linebacking core is a huge question mark. I'm really surprised we've gotten this far without any additions. So that says to me, we're looking at draft. And to the extent we can't get a guy in the draft we want high, we are filling in for another year at linebacker with late free agents and cut downs when we get to camp. And we're just going to try to make it work for another year until we can start to build that up. But it's a hole on our team. And that's all I have to say about that.
I think this is a sneaky deep draft at linebacker, actually. And we got a couple weeks, and we'll probably we're going to be doing another one of these with a more in-depth draft type thing. But there are guys in the third and fourth rounds. Like, I really like Cameron Mcgrone, the linebacker out of Michigan. That guy was supposed to be a 3-down linebacker, and then some character concerns about his effort level, brought it in. But bring him in, let John Allen grab his face mask a couple times, and let's have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Or even later, there's some guys in there that I really like. But the linebacker, it's odd. I don't get why we haven't. That is the glaring hole on what could take this defense from being really good to being like, okay, when you play Washington, you just hope you can score 20 points, because if you can't, you have no shot.
Well,
go ahead.
We were trying to get Reuben Foster healthy for a while, and he's a free agent now. Is he done? Like, what happened to him?
He's still out there, Mike. No one knows if he can run anymore. Don't know if he's really got the fire to play. I think he's going to get another shot at camp. I think they're going to bring him in if he's willing to and try and make the team kid, but he's not a guy we can count on.
Yeah.
He trains with the guy John was talking about at tight end that has had 2 torn ACLs that you talked about putting him down already.
Well, it's disappointing that we have a couple of positions.
Your eyes.
It's disappointing that we have a couple of positions that we haven't been able to really take up a level, but I think we have to realize, I mean, we have 3 starters coming out of free agency so far. That's one more than I was even hoping for. So that's a pretty good, I think PFF had us like the number 2 or number 3 team in free agency because of that. So I think it just becomes a matter of you can't compete for every player, and at some point you run out of money and you run out of time. And so I don't know. I think they're going to, look at it this way. They did magic last year with a lot of holes, worse than what we're going to have in 2021. So it's just going to take it's going to take some coaching and some plugging here and there. And that's not even accounting for whatever injuries pop up.
That's true. John, but as we plug holes, it makes the remaining ones glare that much more. I think that's what I'm thinking with the linebackers. It's like that is a really obvious, noticeable hole in in the defense right now.
Well, but maybe what they're thinking is if you can get up on the line of scrimmage and you can play some press corner, you can jam guys right there at the line, give Chase a little bit of time. Maybe you don't have to have household names at linebacker. Maybe those can be guys who just have high motors and are willing to put in the grunt work, right?
I think
Well,
we
we've
also
got
have,
Kaliki Hudson and Jordan Kunasic and
And if you have a quarterback and wide receivers and running back that can keep them on the field instead of 3 and outs all the time, that defense can rest. And those 4 down, we didn't blitz much last year. Those 4 men got in there on a regular. And with Ioannidis coming back and Settle being in the rotation, maybe if we can keep the offense on the field more than 3 and out, they can just keep doing their thing because these boys are tired, man. We were asking Chase Young and those guys to stay out there and win games for us. They literally won games for
They were
us.
playing 60 and 70 snaps.
Right? Like nobody wants to do that or can do that consistently. So, Bostic and Holcomb might not be so bad if the offense can stay on the field. I don't know.
What you got,
Well,
Paul?
we got to take solace in the fact that in Rivera and Del Rio, we got 2 guys who played linebacker themselves. So I think they have a quiet sense of confidence about them as well, that they can plug guys into the position and make them effective. And I think it's hard to convince me as well that these guys don't want to handpick a linebacker that fits that ideal mold that they have in mind as well. So I think the coaching comes into play a lot into it as well.
I thought you were suggesting that one of those guys might suit up for us there for a minute, Paul.
Why not?
I'm
Let's
not
do it.
sure Del Rio still can't.
Right. Hey, Rivera got a jersey. Didn't he get a jersey the day he got hired? It's on his wall. So real quick, one last thing before we wrap this thing up. One exercise I've liked to do when I've talked to fellow Washington football team fans here is to go rapid fire position by position, looking into last season and then going into next season. And let's have a realistic approach as to whether or not we've upgraded, not just with free agency, but it's just in general. Quarterback. I think we can realistically say we've upgraded quarterback, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Running back. Now, we just re-signed Lamar Miller. That's a depth guy, whatever. But I'm going to throw something out here. Intriguing. Antonio Gibson didn't play running back. So that guy's now got 16 NFL games as a running back in it, where he's getting to learn the position. So can we think that maybe we've upgraded it just simply because he's more experienced?
I think we're treading water. We need to see if he's all the way back from the injury and how other teams adjust to him now that they got a little bit of film on him. I don't think we've hurt ourselves. I don't think we've improved though either yet.
I think McKissick might be the one to watch. McKissick, he did a pretty solid job when Gibson was dinged up last year and he was carrying the ball more and in the backfield more. I mean, he did a damn good job. And so I think he might be the guy that takes it up a notch this year, not Gibson. I think Gibson's already there.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson was going to get 1,000 yards for us last year.
So
Still
tight
can't
end,
let that one go.
tight end, we're treading water. Tight end's a wash, right?
Yes.
O-line, how you guys feeling about O-line? I know we're a little nervous, but Scherf, big deal. We've re-signed Sharp, which means like little to nothing. I could probably, I don't know. I won't say I could line up, but so we have concerns there. So now going into the draft. In the draft, we've identified.
I think we went down with our O-line. We did not address Sheriff. He didn't sign a long term. We just paid him max deal for 1 year, the tag. We got Charles at left tackle. We have 3 guys that I mentioned that are out there that are left tackles that we're going with a guy that made 2 snaps at left tackle and then was injured for the season. I think we have not addressed anything there. Unless it happens in the draft, I think that we've gone down in O-line.
So now that's priority 1 in the draft, right?
No.
No, you don't think so? You think we're gonna stick
linebacker? Mark's all on that linebacker train. The best
you,
move
man.
we've made on the offensive line in the last 12 months is a long-term contract for Rollier.
Yeah. which
And
is
that's a good contract. That's a great deal. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
no. I'm not, and I'm not throwing stones at that. I'm saying that's a real positive. We
Mhm.
identified the guy. He's playing really well. We didn't overcommit to somebody that's mediocre.
Right.
You know, I feel like that was a real positive. We did the business with Rollier we should have done with Scherf.
Am I hallucinating? Did we not sign a backup center also in free agency? Did I dream that?
Yeah,
Did
no,
he come
you're
from
not.
Carolina?
I don't remember.
I think you're right, actually. Yes, I think we did.
I don't know
I
the
think he
name,
was
but
from
it's,
Carolina.
he was a
Tell
depth,
me
a
the dude
depth
also
signing.
plays guard, because come on. A dedicated backup center, unless he's a long snapper too, now that we've bid farewell to Mr. Sundberg.
Oh man, that hurt. But I guess speaking to that, I guess there was an interview with Kime where he was talking about like he like tore his tricep ligament. Like this whole thing exploded, and it was so you got to wonder 34. I mean, I love seeing Sundberg, but it starts to make a little more sense because that guy's got to be able to put the ball 9 yards in a punter's hands like that. And if that wobbles, if it's anything, he's in trouble.
And
It's kind of like a
Rivera,
kicker that can't kick.
Rivera didn't cut a long guy, a beloved guy, out of spite or anything like that.
No.
If he was let go, there was a legitimate reason. Rivera's not petty like that. Look at how long he tried to hold on to Haskins.
I've seen people suggest that maybe Hopkins' problems this season was because Sundberg was having issues snapping.
Yeah.
We'll find out in a couple months.
Yeah, we
brought Hopkins back on 1 year, so he's another signing. So wide receiver inexplicably upgraded, and then now we can even have a bigger upgrade if Harmon comes back and he can play to his level.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's
without spending
without
a
the draft
dollar.
even.
Ty.
Ty. D-line, I think everybody's sleeping on the fact that we haven't had Ioannidis. That's our best interior pass rusher, and he's going to come back, and he should be healthy.
So I'm gonna make a shocking prediction. We're gonna re-sign Kerrigan. Kerrigan's
that
out
shocking.
there. He hasn't got a.
It's not that shocking.
He hasn't got a deal as far as I know, unless it happened while we were on the
No,
horn
he
here.
doesn't. And
So I think he might come back. So Mike, that'll make Mike happy.
Yeah, I won't be surprised at all if he doesn't sign a very friendly 1-year deal.
Clowney's still out there. Olivia Vernon's still out there.
Yeah.
There's still premier. I mean, I never thought Clowney was a premier pass rusher, but his name and his age shows it is. Kerrigan's coming back. He's a great rotational guy. I mean, the guy just broke the Redskins sack record. He's that guy, and he did produce in the moment. He's not a starter. Chase Young and Sweat are the guys, but
and again,
they need break.
A Rivera guy, class, good in the locker room,
leadership. Yeah.
I
hope that they're talking to him because his role was perfect. 38% of the snaps last year. He had 5.5 sacks. He was tied for second with Settle. I mean, that was perfect. I don't need you to cover Ertz. I don't need you to cover Saquon Barkley. I don't need you to play run defense. You get in the field. It's time for you. Go eat. Find ball, see ball, hit ball. And that's it. And we'll keep you fresh. And
what was the second one?
Here, John.
Slow down, Derek.
I'll loan him to you.
And with Settle maturing in his role, Ioannidis coming back, that means Allen and Payne can take a little break at times as well.
We are going to crush opponents, man. Our D-line is so good. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
We're not even talking and just to go back, Mark, you talked about Khaleke Hudson, late pick. I think that's what they're looking at. He's a later round guy, and he flashed a little bit, played some special teams. So
he did.
I don't know that they're going to look at him to be some kind of stud middle linebacker type, but I think he can fit him role. Maybe you shift Holcomb over to the interior because you're playing a 4-3. If you need to get a nickel linebacker type, Holcomb in moments played okay in coverage. I don't know that I would, I want to live and die with that, but maybe that Hudson type guy can do that. But then another name that nobody's talking about is Smith Williams, the kid that we drafted 7th round. He got meaningful snaps last year on our D line. And if it wasn't for the fact that he was 5th in the depth chart, I think, he could have had even more to do so. So we're adding Ioannidis back, who's going to hopefully be healthy. Caleb Brantley's gone. Technically, he's still on the team, but I don't see how he makes the team next year. And then, I like our defense a lot. That one middle linebacker, if we can find that one stud linebacker, we're talking about a really, really good defense.
talking about pride. We were number 2 overall last year, right?
I think passed, but I think it changed after Brady just took us to woodshed in the playoffs.
That's postseason.
And where did he attack us, right? Where have you attacked Washington for a long time now?
Interior.
Right over the middle in the interior.
That was where we missed Ioannidis, because Ioannidis, people forget, Ioannidis is our best interior rushing presence, and we were without him for the entire year. I think
Payne had 2 sacks in that game. Yeah. Payne had 2 sacks in that game. So it was clear we were trying to get interior pressure. So
tell you what, you add a stud middle linebacker who can go sideline to sideline and make plays, and all of a sudden, to me, the whole defense changes. It raises the level a lot. So I haven't given up hope on it. I'm just a little mystified at the approach.
No, we're right back to where all of us thought we were going to be 2 years ago when we picked up Reuben Foster on the cheap, even though we were dismayed over the issues around Foster. All of us looked at the talent and went, dude, this is the middle linebacker we've been pining for years. And then he blew both ACLs out in back-to-back years. So,
and having a quarterback and a wide receiver and a running back coming back with more experience that keeps the defense on the sidelines, getting some Gatorade, breathing and relaxing a little bit, was going to just help immensely. These boys will be firing off. If Fitzpatrick or Heineke or whoever can keep us on the field and let them breathe, they're gonna be just fresh, and you're gonna be able to send the house every play because they're gonna get there.
We'd be pretty confident. Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, think about this defense on less than 50 snaps a game. How scary is that at the end of the game?
That's 91 Redskins stuff right there. That's capital defense stuff right there.
Here's the way I look at it. If we had to start the season a month from now, we'd be pretty excited. We have 9 draft picks last time I checked. So we still got some things to come.
And we're barely a weekend to free agency. We were last year, Rivera and company were working their magic over the next couple weeks. You know what I'm saying? Or McKissick and I even think Logan Thomas was he was 2, 3, 4 weeks into free agency. So
I think the O-line guys that are still out there, I don't know who mentioned that earlier, but I think that's what to watch. That's what to watch for, because that's where there's still significant talent out there.
I don't think we've seen the end of real talent hitting the wire yet either. I mean, there's still 10, 12 teams over the cap.
You're right.
There's going to be some more talent hit the street between now and June 1 or right after June 1. So
Philly and New Orleans are over the cap and they're signing people right now. So something's got to give. They're both hosting and they're talking negotiations and stuff, which is beyond me how that works out. But anyways.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want anybody from Philly. There's an old saying in my house that they're F Philly. We don't like.
Not welcome here.
Nope. After even with McNabb, I didn't want McNabb either. And nope.
I just want to say for the record before we cut out tonight, I've never abused or said anything derogatory or offensive to any masseuses in the Texas area or even in North Carolina. So if you hear if you hear anything like that, if 8 or 9 people come forward, it's just
that guy's nuclear now. And there's still reports that teams want to trade for him. They want to give up. Oh my God. He might not even be able to play.
He might be in prison, man. I don't know about the whole play. He might go to prison. 22
Nothing legal yet. It's all civil right now. But
I would point out that Ray Lewis was still making bank and starting for the Ravens while on trial for murder, my friend. If you can win a game in the NFL, they don't care.
That's true. And Shannon Sharp was defending him. You leave this man alone.
And if Ryan Fitzpatrick hadn't come here, somebody would have said, yeah, but
Is that price coming down a little bit? Is that now it's not 4 first-round picks, it's 2? Oof. So much.
And I'm not afraid of any quarterback in the NFC East right now. Dak, we whoop Dak. We can beat Dak. Daniel Jones, not afraid. Jalen Hurts, that poor kid went from being in Philly that was like a good team to now all of a sudden, over the cap. They're losing. People hate their head coach, and it's just like, oh wow, what's happening?
I agree with you, but I will point out that we could not figure out how to stop Jalen Hurts until Doug Peterson threw in the towel. we could not stop that kid, even though we knew he was going to be running every single down.
We couldn't stop his legs. He didn't throw.
That's all it takes, man.
Squat.
And I worry about that because he worked us like a, you know what?
Yeah, well, I ain't worried.
Tyler Murray did the same thing.
We're right back to needing Mark's linebacker.
I'm not worried because we got all these linebackers to chase him down.
He had one touchdown that with him. I'm
not saying. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
I got to tell you, gentlemen, it's kind of nice to be looking at little units on the team that could still use upgrades. I don't think there's one of us here who doesn't think we're competing for the NFC East this year. It's been a while since we went into years realistically feeling that way about this team.
Hell yeah.
If we have a halfway decent draft, we are the odds-on favorite to win the NFC East this year. It's not just
that.
The Red Wolves will not be stopped in 2021.
He's just fired it up.
Rednecks, Mike.
Damn right.
You got to think
right,
about
boys.
this.
Are we wrapping it up? I think we're good to go. What you got, Paul?
What up, Paul?
What you got, Paul?
No, I wanted to make one point. If Mark was saying that, we're all confident that we can compete for this division, and I'm totally in that boat. If we can compete in this division and come out of this division facing the schedule we're facing this year, I mean, we can have a pretty legitimate shot to win a game in the playoffs. And when was the last time that we can say that, right? So, I mean, if we can stand up against the schedule, I think that's a really, really encouraging sign for this team moving forward.
Good point.
When was the last time we won a game in the playoffs? Was that Tampa? When was it? I haven't been to one of those.
Yeah, I think it was 05.
I think it was Tampa. Yeah, I think it was Tampa. I was talking to some friends and actually my uncle who's on the board. And the best way I can say it is that for years, we've gone into the offseason hoping that Josh Doxson can get right, hoping that, Kirk Cousins can play to a certain level, hoping now we're looking at it. And if our team plays to what they have already done, not even taking the next step, but what they've already done, I think we're in a good place. You know what I mean? I mean, Terry McLaurin, if he doesn't get 1,200 yards, it's a shock at this point, and then even more so when now that Curtis Samuel, who's proven that he can be effective. Logan Thomas, I don't think last year was a fluke, but if Logan Thomas can replicate last season, we're going to be in great shape. Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he plays to the level he has played for the last 3 seasons, which is not even asking him to do more, the same level, I think I think we win the division.
And look at the running backs. Look at the running backs. We have two. I mean, we have seriously good running backs. We're looking really good on offense. If we can just
we went toe to toe. We went toe to toe with a jam-packed all-star Super Bowl team. That team is loaded with top-tier guys that they brought in, Super Bowl or bust, and we went toe to toe with them. Granted, we lost with a rookie quarterback who was his first start ever. But we went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady and the boys, and we
gave them a better game than anyone else did in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So, I got to ask this question. How many games do you think we win last year if Fitzpatrick's the starting quarterback for 16
11
games?
Oh, yeah. At least
11.
I can go 9 to 10, 9 or 10 anyway.
If we don't go against the Giants, we win that one because we had all the momentum. We were smacking them around.
We were a legit division winner instead of a back end division winner.
If Fitzpatrick's starting, we don't lose to Detroit because it just doesn't happen. First, we shouldn't have lost to Detroit on some fluky Chase Young ran into Matt Stafford and he fell down. And that was the difference, because if we go to overtime, we're not losing that game. We don't lose twice to the Giants. Sorry, it just doesn't happen. If you go for 2, Fitzpatrick carries Morgan Moses on his back across that goal line to get the 2-point conversion and win. It's just the difference between having the team that we had, it's just a whole different mentality. And that right there, I see 11 wins last year because we shouldn't have lost a lot of those games. Cleveland, we had Cleveland beat. People forget, we had to lead in that game twice. Once was in the fourth quarter. And we just sat down and let them just run back in it, and Baker Mayfield went ham on us for some god-awful reason, which he doesn't do to anybody else, and he won that game. We battled back and took the lead twice in that game. So that's 3 games right there that I could argue that puts us at 10-6. then it's a coin toss, coin flip to find another one in there somewhere.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
gents.
Gents,
All right, gentlemen. It's been real. It's been fun.
Salute
Good
you.
to see you guys. Salute.